By the way, I think I'm ready to bump up from threes.
I'm not. Never.
Yeah.
Buddy. Can't do it. Can't do it.
Should.
I'm threes
It's
for
great.
life. Nope.
No,
I'm trying to kill myself.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, January 29th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Eric Lindquist, and we are brought to you by Sleeper. 11 games on the slate. Biggest slate we've had in a while. I wish we didn't, but we'll do it anyway. It's going to be fun, except for when we get to Memphis. Then all the fun goes away. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. I'll give you 30 seconds. Go ahead.
No, I'm ready to go. But we have too much to do. 11 games, but
Nice.
Full steam ahead. Hello.
I was going to give you the floor if you wanted to mock me for Friday.
Okay. Well, if we're going to bring that up right off the bat, I didn't want to. You DM me before, like a minute before the slate starts. Hey, good luck to me. Bang. Full fade Luka Doncic. And I said 50, 15, and 10 incoming, and it was somehow worse than that.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to say, but full fading in 150, 50% 100 burger from Luka Doncic. I've never been prouder / sadder for somebody in the history of my DFS tenure. That must have been a fun Friday, my friend.
It was, because I was immediately able to stop paying attention to DFS at 7:20, basically, by the time he finished his first quarter. At 6:59 p.m., I said to you, he's a lock for 100 tonight now. Bet his overs.
101.
He had his
You
points
went
prop
over
was
100.
35. He had it immediately.
If it makes you feel better, I did bet the over of 38.5, and he got it in the first half. Yeah, I did do that.
Yeah, I hope everybody, if I could have put that information out, somebody would have made a lot of money laddering his props.
The next morning, too, I was playing golf, and I get a message from you. I just realized Giannis and SGA combined did not eclipse Luka Doncic. I was like, well, chalk that one up for a little bit of a hard luck situation. I mean, you can't. Thanks, Trae Young, for going out and really trying hard. And then all of a sudden, they actually tried in that fourth quarter. If you watch, like Sadiq Bey was out there doing everything he could. It was like prevent defense, don't even let him touch it. But like maybe do that in the second quarter and later on. But come playoff time, you know that defense comes for 36 minutes a game, which is kind of the problem that the Mavericks have every single time.
Oh, Matt Hurt to sign a 10-day contract with the Grizzlies will be available to play today. I don't know who that is.
Never heard of him in my life. I
obviously not a part of the player pool.
Well, you never know. There are times that you get a little bit surprised. He is not in the player pool.
No, I legitimately have never seen that name before in my life.
No.
Yeah, I'm happy now that I could replace my DeMar DeRozan fade a couple years ago when he set the scoring record for the Raptors in the game that I faded him. That one was pretty bad then. This one, a little bit better.
This one takes the cake for me. I don't know if I've ever seen that kind of a stance. And going through the reverse engineering of it too, I loved it on your part. Again, I'm a coward, the likes of which the world's never seen. Held hands with 50% of the field, like a goober. You at least stood for something. So congratulations to you. Let it take us forward here today.
Apparently, this guy went to Duke, which really bothers me for not knowing that.
Yeah, I'm a Duke fan. I mean, I went to Iowa State.
He doesn't look like he should be in the league. This isn't Jordan. Search for him right now. Put him up on the screen. You're going to find a version of him. It's just an all-white background. He shifted to the side with a hustle jersey on. That is a person that's not in the league. He is in a rec league somewhere at best.
Yeah. He looks like an extra from The Hobbit. Like,
that's not an NBA player. I'm positive of it.
Yeah.
Matt Hurt. MATT space HURT. You'll find this red jersey joint where he's standing up looking like he's never had the body of an NBA player. When you see it, you'll be like, yep, that's the guy. That dude should not be in the NBA.
Here he is giving a high five to Paolo Banchero. That's cool.
He looks like he was on the Duke bench for one specific reason. GPA boost.
He's smart.
39,000 followers on Instagram. That's incredible to me.
Yeah. You got to at least parlay playing at Duke into something more than 39,000 followers. Just throwing it out there.
All
Good
right, you
Lord.
ready?
Yeah, I suppose. My God. Thanks for the sham bomb there. Wild stuff. Wild stuff.
It really sucks because, like, as weird as it sounds, that team's dumb today, and we kind of need that information. Knicks, on the other hand, Evan Fournier out for personal reasons. Now I don't have to feel like he's going to be
Thank
getting
God.
minutes with Randall out. Randall also out. Mitchell Robinson out. 30% ownership coming into Quentin Grimes, 22 to Josh Hart, around 10 to 15 on DiVincenzo and Jalen Brunson. What do you want to do here with this Knicks team? No Julius Randle, very new look. How does that open things up for you?
Yeah, it starts with of course Jalen Brunson offensively. They're going to need him out there a lot, and then you're assuming that Josh Hart gets the start, plays a bunch of minutes himself.
Yeah,
I think there's utility of getting to him as well, assuming that. Now, I will say Josh Hart, I think the projection across the industry is good for him, but like I think there's a lot of ways where Precious Achua, Quentin Grimes can come in and scoop some of those minutes, and maybe Grimes can affect DiVincenzo to a certain extent. But I have a lot of Dante DiVincenzo exposure right now. We'll see what happens with Memphis, obviously, because seeing that starting five, seeing what happens with the questionable tags. I mean, we could all just be playing like an unbelievable amount of them. We probably already are as I look at my lineups. But right now, Dante DiVincenzo is somebody that I'm 3x the field on. They need his shooting out there, and he can definitely do that. He's an 88th percentile offensive player this season, 62.2% true shooting percentage. And from 3, 42.2%. You need him to just sit out there alongside Jalen Brunson and knock down some shots. Otherwise, this is a team that is going to get stifled in other matchups, not specifically the Charlotte one, where Jalen Brunson should be just fine. He's projected for north of 50 everywhere. He's going to play a boatload of minutes, and the usage should be through the roof without Julius Randle. So Jalen Brunson, like him, but 9,300, we can kind of get to whoever we want there, pending Memphis and pending some other news. But I do think DiVincenzo, kind of a sneaky guy, shooting guard, small forward today.
Oh, I'm not excited to roster these Knicks dudes. I like the DiVincenzo shout, shooting guard, small forward. Certainly could take on a slightly bigger role offensively with Randall out. Are you looking at any other of these like side piece Knicks dudes? Anunoby at 6,600. Does he finally get some new usage? Do they unearth someone else on this team that you wouldn't expect? Like, are we going to have a new person in this rotation today?
So, I mean, Ryan Arcidiacono could be somebody that gets dusted off from the other realm. Malachi Flynn is there as well, so maybe. But right now, I've got 8 guys in the rotation. How about you?
Well, I had 9. I was throwing like a rotation to Evan Fournier earlier, so I'm going to remove those 9 minutes and toss them to somebody else. But they're not going to go to those other guys. I'm going to take a deeper look into it right now. It's scary because I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just didn't add anybody. I'm guessing it probably ends up being like a rotation of Jericho Sims or something, and it ends up being not all that interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking at the minutes that I have projected for guys. There's a couple Charlotte pieces that I have for around 38 minutes. I have OG Anunoby for 40 minutes today. I just don't think he leaves the floor. I don't know how you get him off the floor in any capacity, barring foul trouble. And Quentin Grimes, I mean, this is a dude who does nothing from a fantasy perspective. And, he's pulling way too much ownership here, it would appear. Him and Josh Hart I have no interest in the first game of the night, getting to guys that are 5,400 and 3,500. I guess there's a little bit of a reason 3,700 Quentin Grimes, shooting guard, small forward, could fall into a lineup or two. But like, at 0.67 fantasy points per minute, it's for me getting to Brunson, getting to Anunoby just because of what those minutes are for a couple of shares. But then again, DiVincenzo's the guy that if he sees a spike in the usage in the minutes, he's a guy who averages 22 minutes, 24 minutes here. It's obviously gone up since he starting, but Donnie DiVincenzo for 31 minutes just looks different to me because of what I think that upside could be. He'll have the highest usage out of all the guys that I just listed off, I expect, as we accumulate more of a sample size without Randall over the next couple weeks. So for me, it's Jalen Brunson, clear cut. And then the other guys, I think they're just a little bit too popular for the multi-positional dudes outside of DiVincenzo.
All righty. The problem for the Knicks is that they face Charlotte, and that's a really good spot. Dead last in defensive rating, not exactly slow either. So we end up looking now at the Charlotte Hornets, who have a Q tag on LaMelo Ball, a Q tag on Frank Ntilikina. So they actually have some stuff that could pop up. If LaMelo ends up out, we've got a very different form of value. What we do have right now, though, if LaMelo is in, is nothing. 1% ownership to Miles Bridges is the high mark. He's 4% optimal. So, if you want to get to anybody, that's probably the spot. But I think the more likely scenario here is that you play no one from Charlotte unless we have LaMelo Ball out.
Yeah, they're just being cautious with Ball. So at 9,600, I don't even think you need to necessarily look his way on a slate like this today. Also, if he goes for 65, I don't think you're necessarily dead in any way, shape, or form, considering his ownership. So despite the 32.5% usage, I'm just not going to get there. Brandon Miller would become interesting. He's already playing a boatload of minutes. 33 is what we have in for here at Stochastic. I think that, again, just another shooting guard, small forward. He doesn't overlap with the point guard value in Scottie Pippen and Mr. Jacob Gilyard today. He doesn't overlap with Luka Doncic at point guard. He doesn't overlap with a lot of the power forwards that we're looking at rostering here. Small forward, power forward for a guy like G.G. Jackson. So for me, I think you can look at Brandon Miller. He just falls into that DiVincenzo bucket for sure. But then Nick Smith Jr., I would assume, would become a little bit more interesting as well. 3,700 if you get Ball out, if you get Ntilikina out. Not in love with it, but from a fantasy perspective, 0.73 fantasy points per minute sees a little bit of an uptick, obviously without a LaMelo Ball. And I think just the shooting guard, small forward, he maybe fall into a lineup or two. But I mean, for me, there's just nothing here outside of maybe Miles Bridges being like the premier guy to get to just as a spend up if Ball is out.
Jordan Klein. Eric likes the exotic Villanova products.
Oh my dear God, what in the world?
So do I.
Just like the play of the century, Arcidiacono, the kickback, bucket, Michael Jordan crying, beautiful stuff.
I had a Villanova product in my life once before, but it wasn't exotic. It was
what?
Rough.
Do tell.
I had a lovely experience with a gal in Villanova, but she wasn't a prize.
There's something to unpack there on a different day. So, but we're gonna put a pin in that.
That's the story. There's no more real details. It was
I had a different Philly girl. She went to Iowa State, but then her sister went to Temple, so we always spent time over there. Let me just say, don't go on the wrong side of the road over there. It gets sketchy quick out there in lovely Philadelphia. Same thing with Villanova, man. Beautiful spot, as long as you're on campus.
Yes, I very much enjoyed the sections around campus, that's for sure. Larry hit me with one. Josh, did something burn after that visit? No, I would absolutely trade that for an upgrade. I would take the burn if I can boost her stats a bit. Yeah. The consigliere said, give me a player comp for that encounter. All right.
Xavier Tillman. Matt Ryan. This would have been the perfect callback to him right here.
It'd be like if Zion was the 13th man in the offseason. I don't know. Some bench, some in terrible shape bench dude. Like, I don't know, like the way that it's like worse David Roddy.
Big Thotty Roddy.
Less talented Lord. David Roddy. That's a good one. I
just see you sleeping with David Roddy.
I might have been better off with David Roddy, honestly.
Next game, let's go.
LA Clippers, 1.5 point favorites in Cleveland, 225 total. Another game where we don't have a ton that looks awesome. Both of these teams solid defensively, very low ownership, very low optimal rates across the board for the Clippers. Are you seeing anything here?
I mean, outside of just forcing in tournament plays, trying to get different in a lineup or two, like Jared Allen is fine. 7,700 center. We have Jokic to pay up for. You have Sabonis to pay up for. Otherwise, it's just kind of people scattering around the range. Nicholas Claxton for much cheaper, but Jared Allen, he's okay to get to. LaMelo Ball now ruled out after we talked about that, of course. But Donovan Mitchell, 9,700. We'll see as these minutes start ramping up for Evan Mobley if that gets affected. But right, what?
LaMelo Ball out.
Yeah, I just saw that news come across. For me, This game, it's just a bunch of like tournament darts showing up in lineups. Mason Plumlee, I had a little bit of earlier. I don't think I have any anymore in my last run. Let me double check. Yeah, like 0 of that. James Harden, I have 2 shares of in my top 150 lineups. I won't be playing 150 today, but just for the sake of conversation. And then Donovan Mitchell, 9,700, I had 8% of earlier. Not sure where that ends up landing. It'll just kind of depend on all these other guards because, again, point guard, you're going to be rotating through Memphis guys, it would appear.
Yes, you are. On the Cleveland end of this one, kind of similar. Very low projected ownership across the board. Mitchell and Allen right around 5%. Donovan Mitchell, though, showing up a little bit under-owned, 9% optimal. I actually have 14 right now, and I am more than okay with that. Just, getting to him with, well, at least Garland still out works for me. We should be seeing Evan Mobley potentially return here. Not going to be getting a ton of minutes. He's 7,400. You're not playing him in any way, but he is back. I don't really think that affects anything from a DFS standpoint. What are you doing here with Cleveland?
Yeah, again, just a 20% usage in Evan Mobley, 21 minutes, 22 minutes. I can't imagine that's going to cut into Mitchell. And as I said, I just had a little bit more over the field on Mitchell. You have a little bit more than I do, but I totally understand it. The shooting guard eligibility helps a little. And then Jared Allen, I mean, I understand that he's a dude that's there. Obviously, he's the guy who's going to be affected the most by Mobley, I would expect, just in terms of rebound rate going forward. But this is still a spot where it's okay to land on a little bit.
Anything else for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Nope.
Alrighty, schedule's easy, guys, and you know the drill. If you are here, NBA Live Before Lock coming up next at 6 p.m. You don't have to go anywhere. You got to stay on this stream. But the only way that you can see NBA Live Before Lock is to hit the like button. Otherwise, the stream will not come up. You do not want to miss this opportunity to catch that extra hour so you can get all the news up until 7 o'clock. Also, I want you guys to sign up and use our avatar. This costs you nothing. Totally free. Go to stokastic.com/avatar, click the link in chat or the one in the description, load up our logo on DraftKings, FanDuel, Owner's Box, Yahoo. If you finish in the top 3 of a contest of 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 month of whichever package you're looking for, up to a $200 value. So if you want NBA Sims, you got it. That's projections, ownership, boom bust, Discord, sim tool, lineup generator, contest generator. You can't ask for much more. And all you'll have to do is tweet at StokasticHOF. Show us your contest. Show us your lineup. We want to show it off. We want to promote it for you. We get a little bit of a benefit by doing so. So we pay it back by giving you a month of whichever package you're looking for. You cannot beat that. Costs you $0. You don't even have to be a sub with us right now. We just want you to rep the avatar. New Orleans Pelicans, 9-point dogs in Boston, 236 total. This one sounds a lot like Clippers and Cleveland. 3% ownership to Zion is the high mark for ownership. 5.7% optimal rate, the high mark there. Are you getting to anything from the Pelicans?
Yeah, I'm getting to one thing. Zion Williamson, nuke of the night. I really like getting to Zion here in this spot. You're looking at Boston. We're waiting on Porzingis, Al Horford news. You could be looking at a front court of O'Shea Brissett, Neemias Queta. Like, good luck. Have some fun against Zion here. And I want to repeat this because I feel like I bring this up on every show. But in the year of our Lord 2024, the Pelicans have played 13 games. They've only had one, just one, that was decided by single digits on either side. It's insane. The margin of victory has been double digits or higher in 12 of 13 games this season. That has done a couple of things. It's kept the price tags down. Of course, this is a perfectly healthy team in a tough spot against the Boston Celtics, but is it that tough if you lose both Horford and Porzingis? So it's something I've got on my radar. 7,300 Zion Williamson. The minutes have been down purely because of these blowouts, and he's been out for a couple of these games, but I expect against Boston, if you get both of those pieces out in the front court, 1.25 fantasy point per minute Zion Williamson out here, I feel pretty good about possibly having a competitive spot, getting to 32 minutes and just kind of seeing where the chips lie on a 2-3% on $7,300 Zion Williamson.
Yeah, I would happily have any Zion, even Brandon Ingram, shooting guard, small forward, 7,500, very easy to get to. But these guys are ownership pivots. These guys are GPP plays that are going to allow you to have a little bit more unique lineup, give up, a fantasy point per 2 in projection, but save yourself quite a bit of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of teams with that sort of deal, the Boston Celtics are a total wild card right now. Q tag on Al Horford, Q tag on Kristaps Porzingis, doubtful tag on Luke Cornett. No one owned more than 9%. We get Jason Tatum just creeping over the line at 10.2% optimal. I do have about 12% of Tatum, not much else. But we need the news here because we could end up with like a free Kata at center, 3,600, if all of these dudes get ruled out. We don't really know what's going to go on here for Boston. But if everybody's in, do you like anything?
If everybody's in, no, outside of Tatum, I think that would be the only guy I'd get to any of here. I just ran the Sims ahead of the show and I got to right around 10% of him, and I'm just fine with that. It's just pure raw points to be getting to, and you can kind of rotate through a lot of these guys on the top end. We're going to have a ton of punts. We're going to have so many pieces of value, and you could be getting more of them here. But yeah, assuming everybody's in, I would definitely be prioritizing Tatum and nothing else. And prioritize is the wrong word. I would be getting to Tatum and probably not a whole lot else. But obviously, it's far more interesting to talk about what that lineup can look like. You could have O'Shea Brissett, Neemias Queta, as you said, if in the event that Zinger and Al Horford get out. But I'll ask you, if one of them is ruled out, like if we get just Porzingis out and Al Horford in, would you play Al Horford 5,900? I think he's already out anyway, but he's not even in our projections, Al Horford.
He's questionable on the injury report.
That's what I saw too. So I was just curious.
I mean, not really. Like, is he playable? Yeah. But, let's call him a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. Let's give him 30 minutes. That's 27 fantasy points at 5,900, 4.6x his salary. Not even all that interesting.
Yep. That's kind of the way I feel about it. So it's going to be Queta or O'Shea Brissett or a little bit of Sam Hauser at 3,700 and, just kind of rotating a couple of shares, but they're going to pale in comparison to other stuff that exists on this slate. I mean, Kate is the most interesting because of the fantasy point per minute rate, but outside of that, I don't think that we need to try to force anything else in there. I'm probably not going to play any Porzingis if he ends up getting ruled in. Jason Tatum, though, 9,200, the only guy that I'm currently getting to.
If we get Horford out, Porzingis out, and Luke Cornett maintains that doubtful tag and ends up out, Kata becomes like a 60-70% owned type dude before lock.
I don't know if he does. I don't know if people get there like that. I hope the news comes out as late as humanly possible, and I will plan to do exactly what you're planning to do with that as well. But I am of the mind that, what a weird starting lineup. What is that? Miller, Martin, Bridges, Washington, Richards. They're starting Washington and Richards together. Okay, that's fun. I am pretty positive that he will be under 50% owned in pretty much all capacities, because as I keep running everything for Memphis, I was updating some stuff here. If Vince Williams ends up sitting, if you get those guys sitting here, all of those guys are going to be absorbing 50, 60%, more so than just like Scottie Pippen Jr. is pulling 80% ownership and, 55% on David Roddy. Like, I think everybody gets inflated to that number just because of how few of bodies they're down to. But I am with you. Kata would be awesome to be getting to.
24 minutes fantasy point per minute at 3.6 salary, 6.7x his salary. That's better than everybody on Memphis right now, other than Scottie Pippen Jr., at least in my stuff. And I don't know, like 24 might be light if everybody's out. We're going to get somebody in and it's not going to matter. But if those three guys are out, I assume Cato will be in just about everything that I do.
He just hasn't started yet this whole year, which is kind of like, I think you might have to like play out the scenarios where he doesn't start and you just play him anyway.
No, he started.
Has he? I don't think he has.
Twice, I think.
Take
off the top of my head.
I'll look here.
No, maybe I'm wrong. Didn't he get a spot start on one random day? No, you're right. I pulled it up.
Double check.
I could have swore you got.
I'm positive he didn't, because there was a spot where we were projecting him in like everybody else, Cornette. And then it ended up being Luke Cornett, and then we just jammed Cornett, and that worked out.
Either way, if this is the case, though, they don't have any other bigs.
Correct.
They're going to
have Jonas Valanciunas and Zion on the other side, so they're going to want Kata, you would think.
Yeah. Yeah, even if he's not starting, you're still going 20 minutes and he's a 6x dude.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't start now. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. We're about to get to one of the teams that we got to talk about, but it's not this one. The Utah Jazz are 1-point favorites in Brooklyn, 236 total. For the Jazz, pretty much everything that we've just said about every other team. There's not a lot of ownership coming in, and there's not a lot of optimal rate coming in. Do you like anything from Utah?
If you got to Lauri, sweet. I'm actually not getting to him today, and I almost always play Lauri Markkanen. 1.3 fantasy point per minute, small forward, power forward. I just have unlimited salary, so if I'm landing 8,200, that's just for the sake of being contrarian, because I'd much rather get up to the Giannis's, to the Lukas, to the guys in that range and not have to think too much about these 8K guys. I'm going to be rotating some guys cheaper than that for sure. Mikal Bridges on the other side of this one, but when I look at Lauri Markkanen, not really somebody that I land on a whole heck of a lot. They just have a 10 and a half-ish man rotation. They're playing everybody for decent minutes. Chris Dunn continues to play that 17, 19-minute role in the starting capacity, and then Jordan Clarkson comes in right away and plays the bulk of them. But God, it's just really, really hard to look at anything on Utah and think, I need to get to that. 6,900 Colin Sexton, I actually have one share of, but I doubt that maintains when I get down to like my top 50 lineups.
The opposite side of this one, though, is a little bit different. And by the way, the one that I was thinking of was when Lamar Stevens started in place of Keita. Okay. And no one saw that. Well, whoever it was in chat, kudos to you for the one that said it was going to be Lamar Stevens that day. But we were all going and assuming Keita. Now, Brooklyn, we finally got some ownership. 30% to Cam Thomas, 20 to Bridges and Claxton, around 10 for Cam Johnson, Royce O'Neal, Spencer Dinwiddie. This is a team that we're finally getting to. A lot of negative leverage on those highly owned guys. Not really stopping me, though. I'm getting to all of Brooklyn. What are you doing?
I'm really lost on what I'm supposed to do with this team. Mikal Bridges is the guy that I wrote up that I talked about the most because I feel the most certain about his minutes. But there's two things that existed on Saturday's game as you work through the rotations. The most obvious one is that you didn't have Cam Johnson. So Cam Johnson was out for personal reasons. So as you're going through the lineups here, I think Cam Johnson just comes back and starts right out of the get-go. And then you're switching out Dorian Finney-Smith, who, played 30 and a half minutes before getting hurt, didn't end up closing the game, and now he's out today. But you get Ben Simmons back for 16, 18-ish minutes, and there's always that hot hand Lonnie Walker situation that I talk about where, he could play himself into 20 minutes out of the middle of nowhere. Dennis Smith Jr. defensively, but I'm not as certain in Cameron Thomas's minutes as everybody else seems to be. He played 33 minutes here. He got inserted into the starting lineup. If he's starting again, I totally get why you land on him at 6K, but do I want him in 30% of my lineups here? I don't know. I think that they can definitely play more of the hot hand approach, and Royce O'Neal is kind of another dude that I think could walk into just more minutes in a potential larger role here. And with Ben Simmons there, I don't know. It just feels like everybody's projecting Cam Thomas for 33, 34 minutes. I'm not sure if he's not knocking down shots that he stays out there for that kind of time. Like, I know that that's like putting an if-then clause in front of it, but like, if I put him at 30 minutes, I really don't land on him the same way that I land on Mikal Bridges, who isn't going to move from 37 minutes for me no matter what. Like, I think he's just in a more secure role. I like getting to him more. So I understand the 20-ish% ownership. I'm a little bit north of that, just ever so slightly, 24%, but Cameron Thomas, I'm currently a third of the field, sitting right around 9% on him. I don't love the play. So if you want to talk through Cam Thomas a little bit, just help me see the light here.
I have a bit over the field, but I did just take a minute away from him. I checked out his points prop right like as you were talking, and I was a little bit higher than where I wanted to be. So with me taking that minute off, I'm guessing I end up right around that 30% mark. It's really a position thing. Him being guard forward, I think, is really making it easy to get there. And I mean, at the very least, this dude has never met a shot he doesn't like. 22nd ranked defense for Utah, 6th in pace. What was that?
You're not getting gypped when he's on the floor. Like, he's going to go out and chuck. He's got a 31% usage, but I think for me, the minutes are just so secure. Shooting guard, small forward, 7,200 Mikal Bridges, and it's not like I need the money. So like, that's where I'm just landing on a lot more Bridges, it would seem like, than the field. And I'm just basically trimming all of that off of Cam Thomas and putting it towards Bridges.
I'm over on Bridges. I'm over on Claxton. I'm over on Thomas. I'm over on Cam Johnson. So I'm getting these dudes. I just like that matchup. 6th in pace for the Jazz, 22nd in defense. That sort of combination is standing out to me. So I've got a little bit of Brooklyn right now. Probably more than I would really like, but there are ways to get different elsewhere.
Yeah, Claxton's my highest owned true center at the moment. So getting a lot of the power forward center guys rotated in because of Memphis with 3 of them. But Claxton, definitely like getting to him here. That is for sure.
Markelle Fultz out for today. Not all that surprising.
Yeah, back to back.
Well, back to games that are completely meaningless for DFS purposes. The Phoenix Suns are 3-point underdogs in Miami, 229 total. No one has owned more on the Phoenix side than 2% Bradley Beal. No one is more optimal on the Phoenix side than 2.5% Bradley Beal. Maybe this looks a little different later, and we get the news that Yusuf Nurkic isn't going to play, at which point then we can get Drew Eubanks into our lineups a little bit more than the 0% we have right now. Kristaps Porzingis out.
Al Horford in, disaster.
Horford in, Cornette out.
Yep.
So probably doesn't create anything interesting from Boston right now. I don't think we're going to get anything out of that.
Yep. Just going to play those 5 guys a lot. And then I'm not going to do a heck of a lot to change. Like, honestly, this sounds weird, but maybe it helps Peyton Pritchard a little bit at 4K. I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
I think we see
thinking.
Like Horford get in around 30 minutes of center time. You get 14 minutes out of Keita or something as a backup center, and the other additional minutes that you need just get tossed onto like an O'Shea Brissett, or you bump Hauser 2 or 3 minutes. I don't think we're going to be creating anything. Not on this kind of like nobody from Boston is running down the best value plays on this slate now. So we got nothing to worry about. Do you have anything you want to talk about for Phoenix?
I have 0 shares of anybody from Phoenix. It might be. So Drew Eubanks played at least enough yesterday to be viable here at 29 minutes, but 0 usage. You're going to have that when you're playing with Durant, Beal, and Booker. That's for sure. And Devin Booker. I mean, he's 1%. If you landed on Devin Booker based on what you've seen of late, nobody's going to blame you, but how you go about prioritizing them sitting next to each other here against Miami in this matchup, 113.5 implied team total. There's just no way I can tell you anything from Phoenix is a good play because it's not.
All right. When we keep it moving to Miami, similar story here. We've got, call it 5 or 6% ownership to Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. Everybody that's normally in for Miami is in. Highest optimal rate is still sub 10%. That is 9 for Hero. I have 12. Do you like anything from Miami?
Bam Adebayo, I'm a little bit north of, which 8,100, whatever. I'm okay with that. He's a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy. It hasn't taken as big of a hit here. You have Butler, Rozier, Hero, good fantasy point per minute guys that are all now sharing the floor with him. So I expect it to come down a little bit, but he's playing a boatload of minutes, and he is very, very good when in those minutes here. We have seen it tail off the last 2, but now that the tag's 8,100, I think you at least look at that and see that to be pretty interesting to land on. But outside of him, I really don't get to anything.
Well, a lot of these games are very easy to talk about.
Yeah,
it's kind of gross. You know what else is easy to talk about?
Sleeper.
Yes, they are. You nailed it. $500 first match deposit bonus. Click the link in the description or the one that pops up in chat, and you will be able to sign up and try to get that bonus. Now, if you only have $100, they'll match with 100. If you only have $200, they'll match with 200. Anywhere up to 500. You could also get 100x payouts. It's the highest in the market because they've got dynamic payouts. You don't just have even action on both sides of these lines. You can get a little bit of juiced up stuff on Sleeper and get yourself all the way up to 100x. Minimum deposit's going to be $20. They got a free square going tonight. You need over 0.5 points on Giannis. You should take advantage of every single free square you can get on every single pick'em site that exists. Do you know why? Because you're going to be able to bring down your costs of playing at that site. Free squares aren't going to make you rich. Consider them like a phony rakeback for Sleeper. That's going to you're just going to have an easier time profiting at Sleeper by playing anytime they've got a free square like Giannis over 0.5 points. Use it, take advantage, sign up using our link, maybe use Odds Shopper if you're looking for some extra plays. But for now, up to $500 on that first deposit. All righty. We go to the Lakers. 1-point dogs in Houston, 233 total. Highest owned dude for the Lakers is 7%. That would be Anthony Davis. He is also, he's not even second in optimal rate. LeBron at 6.7%. Spoiler alert, AD and LeBron are both questionable. I don't see any priorities coming from the Lakers, but I can see the two guys you would want to get to.
Yeah. Anthony Davis, LeBron James. And I understand Russell's been playing a boatload of minutes. I understand he's in the starting rotation. I have zero interest in trying to chase his 38, 40 minutes a night thing at 7K so long as AD and LeBron are in. And I don't think there's any reason to think that we don't have both of them playing here. If somehow that changes, you've got an opportunity to get to Russell. Reeves. Vanderbilt would probably be a little bit interesting, but he's not a great fantasy point per minute guy. Rui Hachimura could step into a starting lineup, but I look at this as just like, I'm going to get to a little bit of AD. I'm going to get to a little bit of LeBron, but there is nothing against a Houston team that's been pretty darn good under Udoka on the defensive end. Just no interest in getting to anything. It's just pretty brutal.
Any interest on the Houston side, who looks exactly like the Lakers side? Notari Eason, as per usual, 6% ownership to Şengün, Green, and Van Vliet, 8% optimal to Şengün. I have 14. I also have 16 of Fred Van Vliet and 10 of Jabari Smith. So kind of a stand on Houston.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Şengün's the guy that I kind of starred highlighted. I have nearly 20% of him. I have 18%. Looking at him for 33 minutes. And another team that they're just going to play a boatload of minutes for these guys. He has had back-to-back games now, 25 and 28 minutes. There were just wonky spots. Don't really know even what to make of what happened against Brooklyn there, but feel pretty good about an 8,700 Alperen Şengün. Obviously, if AD were out, one of the things you never do is you never really like change the projection automatically on the other side for a defensive guy being out, but it would be useful to have Anthony Davis out and then see Alperen Şengün not have to deal with that. But 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy, I'm going to get to him regardless. I think he is the best play on this side of the ball. Jalen Green, I know he's gone completely scorched earth in a couple of spots. I'm not going to be chasing that to any extent. Looks like I have one share of him. And Fred Van Vliet, 7,500. I think that's always okay to land on. He's going to have those crazy outlier performances, but trying to pinpoint them, I think we can find a little bit better here. Although with the Lakers starting Reeves, starting Russell, we do see a weaker defensive front on purpose for the Lakers. So maybe that's an opportunity to give him a boost if you're looking for a point of differentiation. I think there's better spots to go, though.
All righty, we will keep it moving to a game that we're definitely going to have a lot to talk about, but sort of only on one side. The Sacramento Kings are 10-point favorites in Memphis. 223 total. Memphis, we'll get to. Sacramento, on the other hand, they look like every other team that I have mentioned here. Clippers, Cleveland, Boston, Pelicans, all of it. 5% owned to Harrison Barnes, who went crazy recently. 5% optimal to Harrison Barnes. I don't have a single share of Sacramento right now. I would obviously take whatever I could get of De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis. I did take Domantas Sabonis' over on Prize Picks today, so we're cheering for that.
Well, how many minutes do you have Harrison Barnes in for?
33. We have 34.
I have him for more. And I think that this is kind of where I'm actually landing on him a little bit. I think you got to look at this team as one that they're trying to stay afloat here, trying to stay afloat until they can get to the trade deadline and try to do something. I don't know how they do something, but there are crazier things that have happened here in the NBA at the trade deadline. Harrison Barnes playing 40 and 38 minutes here recently. If it's a hot hand approach, maybe I am kind of like sitting there middling it, but like they've been utilizing him a little bit more and just relying on him a little bit more, not really getting to Vezenkov as much, not really getting to as much. I mean, Davion Mitchell did come on a little bit here recently, playing 15 minutes against Golden State, but back down to 11 against Dallas. But seems like they're just riding with their core six guys, that being Barnes, Herter, Murray, Monk, Sabonis, Fox. Like those are the six guys that are going to absorb a majority of these minutes. Trey Lyles, you're always carving out a little bit, but even those minutes have started to trail down. We've seen times where Trey Lyles got 22, 24 minutes of run, 33 against Milwaukee, but that has been trimmed into the mid-teens. And part of it is Harrison Barnes playing better. And I think as long as you see that, I have him for 36 and a half minutes today. So yeah, I'm landing on him a little bit more than the 5%, but I don't have anybody on this team in double digits. That's for sure.
I do want you to pump the brakes a little on Barnes. Vezenkov has been out the past two games. This is his first game coming back into the rotation. I didn't
even see that. Thank you.
Yeah. So not games. that like is like a full link to Barnes, but that does sort of like give you that guy at a wing position that can get back to a 12-minute rotation and bring Barnes down a hair.
Yeah, he comes.
Now, if you're not jamming him, it doesn't really matter. But if you're jamming him, maybe cut a minute or two.
I have 8% of him. I said he's the only one I'm getting to like at all. Yeah,
I wouldn't even sweat it then. But if you see yourself get like 40, then it's probably the minutes.
Yeah. I mean, the game he played the most of was the one I was at against Phoenix. He played 18 minutes because he was knocking down threes from everywhere. It was really dumb. I guess he was only 2 for 3 from three. It felt like he made like 5 or 6 in that game. That's so weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, 11 and 6 those last two. Maybe he gets like a rotation or two, and that trims off a little bit there from Barnes. So that makes more sense why I'm seeing 33.5 and 34 across the industry, because I was going through the last couple box scores, putting their minutes together, and I didn't understand why Barnes was sitting at that low of a number, but now I do. 36.5, I'm going to take it back down, and I'm probably going to get around the field.
All righty, time to do it. By the way, we got a ownership update 7 minutes ago. If you want to grab it, it has changed Memphis a little bit. It's still the same sort of messaging, but we don't have the same sort of. When we thought they only had 8 dudes, it was a little bit different. Memphis has whatever that random dude is that I mentioned before: David Roddy, GG Jackson, Gilliard, Triple J, Aldama, Pippen, Williams, and Tillman available. No, that can't be right.
Yeah, I just refreshed.
Our ownership is just
up.
wrong. Yep. So yeah, that's going to need to get corrected. If anybody's listening, you'll hear that right now. But what I'm going to go by the old one, which I still have. We had 80% ownership coming into Scottie Pippen, which will be in that area. 55 to Roddy, 20 to GG Jackson, Gilliard, Jackson, Aldama. Vince Williams is still there, although we do have to worry at least a little bit because this team is so snake bit. Vince Williams is questionable. Zaire Williams is doubtful. John Conchar is doubtful. I think this team is going to have 9 guys, including that new rando character, which is so much fun. You got to play a lot of Memphis. Hit these guys with the unassailable best options for the Grizzlies.
The unassailable best option, bar none, is Scottie Pippen Jr. He's a 1.07 fantasy point per minute guy. Last week on Friday, I hope you guys got the news in the premium Discord from Lee that, you were looking at Scottie Pippen being out because he's going back and forth. He has a 2-year deal, but it's a 2-way deal where he's going to the G League, coming back and forth. But when he's on the floor so far this season, 1.07 fantasy point per minute player back when he was the Lakers, getting waived by the Lakers, and then obviously lands here in Memphis. That Miami game, he looked really, really nifty. And then he ended up playing here yesterday against Indy, 17 minutes. He just kind of goes out and gets things done. He's going to turn the ball over a lot. Doesn't really matter at 3,500. He's going to play backup, and it doesn't even matter. He is the guy at 3,500 I want to get to the most of. You also have Jacob Gilliard at 3,600, the presumed guy that walks into potential starter minutes here in the absence of Luke Kennard this time around. You could see something where they go to like a larger wing type lineup and go Roddy, Vince Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr., GG Jackson, Santi Aldama, but I think that's a little bit unlikely. I think you have Pippen or you have Gilliard, who I don't know who they prefer between the two. All I know is that you're going to want to have exposure to something there at the point guard spot, specifically Scottie Pippen Jr. between the two, if neither of them are going to be starting. You then have to account for Vince Williams and the questionable tag sitting there for him. The John Conchar questionable tag. If they play, you play them because I assume that they're both starting. But then Jaren Jackson Jr., there's going to be a lot of debate and people talking about 8,100 and, oh, he's not been very good as a primary option here. I really don't care because he's going to play 32-ish minutes, 33-ish minutes. Yeah, it's wonky. There's definitely some blowout potential here, but his steals, blocks, his stocks upside in general, averaging 2.5 of those, 2.6 of those per game here, makes up for that. The nearly 30% usage that could actually see a tick up here in this spot makes it worth it. So I'm going to be carving out a large allotment of my lineups to have at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 Memphis guys, pending how this news breaks down.
I have a ton right now. 50% of Roddy. Full lock button on Scottie Pippen prior to starting the show. We'll see if that changes up a little bit as I reallocate some of those minutes for, I can't remember his name, Matt Hunt, Mike Hunt. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Not playing him. Not going to work here anymore.
If you will.
Oh, I like Aldama at 5,400 power forward center. He's a guy that I'm 2Xing, but really, like, I'm happy to get everything here except for Vince Williams, who's like already priced where he should be. Oddly enough, all of the news that happens here, unless it's him out, like none of it really changes for Vince Williams because his price is built on them being awful and him getting all of this time. I do think, like, prior to the news, it did make Tillman more interesting because they were just getting to a point where they didn't have a choice and they had to play him more. That I think has gone by the wayside now. But when it comes to Roddy, Pippen, to me, Aldama, Jackson, and Gigi Jackson. Like, I love those dudes. Gilliard scares me because he's like not that good and they don't need his skill set. Like when you're a primary assist dude, it probably helps to have guys that can score with you, which I think sort of limits
Yeah.
Gilliard, whereas Pippen's going to look for a shot a little bit more. But when it comes to Memphis, like I don't see anything bad. Pippen and Roddy feel like just guys you cannot get away from just because of price or positionality and minutes. But the guy that I have my eye on most is Gigi Jackson for today.
My one thing about Gilliard that I will say is that in the event that he starts, it's hard to not be clicking on him, and I will have no problem playing him and Pippen Jr. in the same lineups because of the price points for it. But like, there is a legit chance that Gilliard starts alongside Williams, Roddy, Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr. Lots of ways that I think this starting lineup can roll out. I am with you where I think Xavier Tillman's kind of been banned to the shadow realm to come off the bench for the rest of time. And then Gigi Jackson, even off the bench, we know by now you can play him, that he's going to play 28, 30-ish minutes in those kind of spots no matter what anyways. But if Gilliard starts, would you still want to be getting there? Because I surely would.
Yeah, I assume he starts. I got him in for 29 minutes. I don't want to like undersell him or anything.
Okay.
I just think he's the easiest guy to get away from Memphis.
That's probably
now,
true.
if we get Vince Williams out, that like I'll feel a little bit better about everybody then. But for right now, he's still eating 35, 36 minutes of this. If he ends up out, you get back to that point where you can't really get away from these dudes any longer.
Yeah, with Conchar out, Luke Kennard out, you're going to need some kind of ball handling period. So a lot of ways, again, I have Gilliard as the starter, but I like Scottie Pippen more, as does the field.
Just a wild situation. Pay attention for news prior to 8 o'clock, because if you get Vince Williams out at that point in time, you're going to want to swap to more Memphis.
Yep.
Good?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's an 11-game slate, and it's weird to spend, as long as we do on a team like Memphis, but like they are the most important team on the slate. And sometimes you get these spots where it's just so clear cut and it's like, here's your value. Here's your value. It's not as clear cut here because of some of the fantasy point per minute rates. And you talk about Gilliard being an assist guy and, well, how many are too many? I am looking through lineups that have 5 Memphis guys, and I don't think it's absolutely insane. I think Vince Williams being out would create that opportunity for just about everybody here. But it's just, this is like those Golden State days of yore, Portland days of yore, where you have 8 guys and it's just like, well, you got to play at least 3 of them in every lineup.
Memphis days of yore. This feels like 5 years ago Memphis. I think that's how they ended up with Ja. They played all of these idiots.
That was a good decision. Was
it?
Not for us. I mean, I don't remember those kind of Memphis days. For me, the most like the most vivid ones recently are like 2 years ago, Golden State, when they just tanked just to say screw it, and then came back and won a title the next year. And then
I think Memphis played a game where they only played 6 dudes during that run.
Did they really?
I think so.
They're awful like that.
Like everybody got 40.
Yeah. That was Portland last year.
Yeah. There's someone that would have known the answer to that, but we don't talk about him anymore. Minnesota, 2.5-point dogs in OKC, 223 total. No ownership coming into Minnesota. No optimal rates really coming into Minnesota. In that 5% range, like 8 other teams on this slate. Are you getting any of your Wolves?
Wolvies. Yeah, no. A little bit of Anthony Edwards. I mean, this is a competitive spot, pace up spot. Awesome for Minnesota side of things, less so for the OKC side of things. But Karl Anthony Towns, if you've landed on a little bit at 8K, we've seen that upside. I obviously like him for that upside. Last week, Monday, wouldn't be 30K richer if it weren't for him and going absolutely berserk in a first half. Anthony Edwards, 8,500, though, I'm getting a little bit more, and I think it just has to do with the point guard, shooting guard eligibility, but nothing that's a priority in any way, shape, or form here.
Now, I got a share of Anthony Edwards, which is fun.
Yeah, even if Mike Conley's out, I don't think it's going to really do a whole hell of a lot for me.
No, the bloom is sort of off the rose at 4,500 for Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah, Kyle Anderson could walk into more at 4K, and he could actually be somewhat interesting, but it just seems like they're never going to extend him past 22 minutes. So you're kind of hoping that he somehow beats out guys that are going to play 32 minutes for Memphis. So good luck with that.
4.5% ownership to SGA is the high mark for OKC. He also leads the team in optimal rate. I have 16% right now. Didn't go well on Friday, but seems like I'm running back at least a little bit of Shea. and nobody else. I'd like to watch this game, though. Oklahoma City is probably a little salty after yesterday.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Minnesota lost to San Antonio on Saturday, so that hurt my feelings very much. I don't know if you saw that one, but it was painful. Watched that game and just was miserable. But Minnesota OKC is going to be awesome. I think Milwaukee Denver from a real life perspective is going to be awesome too. More fantasy viability there though, just because of Joker and Giannis. But SGA here, you could walk into 40 in any matchup for SGA. I'm just worried that you're never going to see him go for like the crazy like 38, 40 type minute experience that you can get from other guys in the range. So he's got to get it done on efficiency, which he can do. 1.56 fantasy point per minute guy with 3 stocks per game. That's useful, but I've got him for 35.5 minutes. I'm currently not getting to him at all.
Only guy I have is Shea. Don't have a single share of anybody else. Works for me at this point. Like if you're going to get somebody, that's the dude to get.
True.
All right, we're closing it out. Final thing to talk about. Very easy. People asked and asked and asked, and now we're here with it. Sims, all access. It's the way to do it. If you want everything that we have across every sport, every Sims package, you can do that now. NBA, NFL, MMA, PGA, MLB. It's $550 normally. I know that sounds like a big number, but it's very simple. If you agree to use our avatar wherever you're playing, makes it a little bit easier. $150 savings on our all access package. That takes it to $399 for you on a monthly basis. If you play a lot of DFS, if you are looking to play across multiple sports, all you got to do is hook up our avatar, get $150 off. This all access package will cost you $399. If you're going to be buying one, this is the way to do it. If you're ever dipping your toe into the water of a second sport, this is the package that you're looking for that month. So don't sleep on it, folks. Links in the description or in chat. 3 games to go. The Washington Wizards, 4-point dogs in San Antonio, 241 total. I wouldn't go to this game if we're in my backyard, other than I would want to see Wemby. He is must-see TV. I don't want to see the game.
Yeah,
but I don't want to see the game. I just want to see Wemby. I'd rather him just take warm-ups and leave.
I have way too much of this game, so I'm going to probably end up watching it.
All right.
This is like your tournament pivot game because Kyle Kuzma and Tyus Jones, I have just so much of. I even have a little bit of Denny Avdia. I have some Daniel Gafford. I'm nearly at 15% Daniel Gafford, who's a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy. This is just, I feel like the game environment of this one can just change the salaries of some of these guys. Kyle Kuzma, I think, is one of the better tournament plays on the entire slate there. 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy. And these are just 2 teams that don't play a lot of competitive games. We've seen more from San Antonio here of late. We've seen more from Washington of late, but the prices have just kind of maintained where they are here. And now this is going to be played at breakneck speed, 241.5 total. Kyle Kuzma with power forward center to get a little bit different off of, a piece or two here or there. You went on, I don't know if I want to talk about him as a quote unquote tournament pivot off of Jaren Jackson Jr., but I really like getting to Kyle Kuzma in the game environment. I like Tyus Jones at 6,300, who I'm well over on as well. But then, there's just a number of these guys that are falling into lineups. So those 3 primarily, Denny Avdia, I'm at nearly 10% of. Daniel Gafford, well north of that. So I kind of like getting just double, triple the field on all of those main guys.
Anything else you want to add for the Wizards?
You don't have anything else besides those 4, because you couldn't pay me $1 million to play Corey Kispert on any slate, although he is 3,500.
San Antonio looks a little bit different. We mentioned Wemby before. 8,900 power forward center, 40% owned, 30% optimal. This is a guy that's projected like Giannis, but priced like Dame. It's very difficult to get away from him. He looks incredible. 8,900 power forward center. I don't know what the path would be for you to want to dodge it. Oh, by the way, Zach Collins ruled out.
Oh, boy. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that does. Do I want to play a $3,600 Dominic Barlow for 17 minutes? That might be something I do. 18 minutes.
If he's available.
Yeah, I don't know if he's there or not. After the Scottie Pippen Jr. thing, I don't even want to speculate at the moment. I'll let Lee and the data guys, Rich, and the data guys, make sure that we got that one figured out. But Victor Wembanyama, the clear-cut priority here. I mean, the guy's playing now 30-ish minutes. He's playing back-to-backs. He's a 1.62 fantasy point per minute guy. It's been higher here of late. and he's a walking double-double now playing the 5. It's just been awesome stuff. He's fun to watch. He's easy to roster. He's still sub 9K. I don't know why. So there you go. Victor Wembanyama, he's 44% owned for a reason. You should play some. Jeremy Sohan as well, getting to north of 11%. What do you think about Trey Jones here now starting? Because, he ended up being dinged up, but he's been starting for the last month and a half. And anytime he plays, it feels like somebody that I'm overweight to. I'm waiting for those 32 minutes to show up from the rooftop at some point here. Last couple have been a little wonky, 24 and 28, but I still think it's there for him.
He's not the guy I have. I've got 14% of Devin Vassell, point guard, shooting guard, 6,700. If I'm getting to anybody other than Wemby, it's going to be Vassell.
Okay, that's fair.
No problems with Trey Jones. Obviously the matchup's good.
I have 12%, so I was just wondering.
All right. Orlando Magic, 4-point dogs in Dallas, 227 total. Highest owned dude is 4% to Paolo, 7% optimal. It's a decent enough spot against Dallas, but these guys are all priced where they should be, or a little expensive. So I don't have a single share of an Orlando Magic player. And I don't really think that changes. Suggs now looks a little bit better. Cole Anthony now looks a little bit better, but no Fultz isn't really changing anything here.
I'm curious if I will or not. I was kind of fixing up stuff. Obviously, on an 11 gamer, I'll have enough time after the show to do it. But I got to assume I'll get a little bit of Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs at those kind of tags. But back-to-back for Orlando, that Franz Wagner did play a back-to-back right out of the get-go when he got back. So, again, I don't think we're going to get some unexpected he gets ruled out kind of scenario here. I think he's just good to go. But his presence just depreciates everything we're looking at. Paulo Banchero has a good grading over in the boom bust tool for what it's worth. He's somebody you can land on. But with the number of other power forwards that are absolute priorities on this slate, I doubt I get to him.
All righty. Other side, a little bit different. We have a gentleman that we can talk about, Luka Doncic. Hope you've heard of him. I didn't on Friday, unfortunately. Dante Exum, questionable. Derek Jones Jr., questionable. Dwight Powell, questionable. No Kyrie Irving. 24% ownership coming into a 39-minute. I don't know why I'm reading it like this. $11,800 point guard, Luka Doncic. I don't know why I started with my minutes projection. That didn't make any sense. I've got 32%. So if you're curious, everybody, bet Luka's unders.
My God. Luka Doncic is the best spend up that you have on today's slate between him, Giannis, Jokic. If you're getting to one, you get to him. And the ownership started to come down because of how many point guards you're trying to get to on the cheap end. But that's all the more reason to be jamming in a raw fantasy point per minute guy that is just absolutely insane. 1.75 fantasy points per minute, more without Kyrie out there. The usage is continuing to just trail up. It's nearly 39% here without Kyrie Irving on the floor. And then you're seeing 45 and 46 minutes over the weekend on Friday and Saturday for him. Knowing that that is in the chamber, that they are really pushing to go and try to win basketball games here. They're 25 and 21. They need to add something at the deadline. Yet again, I don't know how they do it. Again, who is going to accept Tim Hardaway Jr. as currency at this point? Not me, that is for sure. But Luka Doncic at 11.8. He is unquestionably somebody that you should be landing on north of that number, I believe. It is not too hard to do with the number of small forward, power forward pivots. So I am well north of that number. And I hope, based off of Friday last week, that you're back on track to playing a little Luka sub 20% today.
I have 32. I hate it. He's going to suck now.
Let's go.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I mean, I don't mind Lively at 5K. That's just a completely reasonable center price point for someone. So I wouldn't mind doing that, but this isn't really the game environment for it. It's kind of just Luka or nothing, unless we get no Dante Exum, no Derek Jones Jr., no Dwight Powell, at which point we're going to start creating a little bit of value, whether that's Grant Williams or Jaden Hardy or Maxi Kleba. Something else will look good.
Yep, Grant Williams still 4,400. The people on Friday who made fun of me for rostering nearly 100% of him. You're not laughing after Saturday, that's for sure. Didn't see the same tweets coming down the pipeline. He had 28 minutes, 21 fantasy points. That wasn't going to win you anything Friday, but felt pretty good about the play then. Or was it Thursday? It might have been Thursday. But anyway, going up against Sacramento, he just... I don't expect that, but the usage was only at 18%. He was doing other stuff on the floor. So he's the guy that you want to pay attention to if the news breaks a certain way. Awesome. Josh Green was also crazy popular on both of those slates. So be on the lookout for just artificial ownership going his way.
Final game of the night on the DraftKings side, not included on FanDuel. Milwaukee 4-point dogs in Denver, 238 total, and no one's getting to the Bucks. 6% optimal and ownership to Chris Middleton is the highest for anybody here. I don't have a single share of Milwaukee. Don't really like getting to them here in Denver at elevation. Slow Denver team, but it always feels weird when Giannis is unowned.
Yeah, Giannis unowned is always fun. He won somebody $1 million being 4% owned in the Millie last week. And you have Denver, 97 possessions per 48 minutes, second to last in the NBA, just barely ahead of the Bulls. That is not ideal. This is not a great matchup to get to, but it's also Giannis Antetokounmpo in prime time against Nikola Jokic here on the other side. Take that for what you will. 1.7 fantasy point per minute guy. Any time that somebody like that is just completely unowned on a slate, there's viability there. But even our guy Middleton, hard for him to make lineups today with all of the cheapies underneath him.
The Denver side is a little bit more interesting, though. This is a side that I had a bit of earlier. It's a little tamer now. We've got 15% ownership coming into Jokic. We've got 10 coming into Jamal Murray. Scattered ownership to coming into some of these other guys. I actually like this spot for Denver. Milwaukee is third in pace, 19th in defense. I've got 20% Jamal Murray. He might be my favorite GPP play today that no one's really going to talk about. And I certainly don't mind getting to Jokic. I don't mind getting Aaron Gordon, who I have 8% of. I do want to hit one quick thing before we go any further. Sam Van Dam had a super chat and I missed it. Said, sorry, I'm dumb, but does White benefit with no unicorn? Not in any sort of major way. They all get an incremental boost with no Porzingis out there, but nobody benefits individually in any big way in that spot.
Yeah, they don't benefit relative to the slate. That's, I think, the more important talking point is the slate has so many guys that are projected for 6, 7x and going north of that with Memphis guys that it's hard to look at any of those small boosts. Yeah, he gets a boost, but it's not anything that's going to put him into the realm of playable for me today. If he falls into one of your 20 max or one of your 150, whatever, that's fine. You're going to get a smattering of those guys all the time, but there's no way he's a clear-cut priority.
What do you want to do for Denver?
Want to get to some of these guys, considering Milwaukee, the exact opposite of what we just talked about on the other side with Denver. This is a massive pace-up spot for them. I like Jamal Murray in this game environment, north of 11% of him. I like Jokic, north of 10% of him. Happy to get to both of them. Not getting to the 10% Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Understand why there's 4,300 there. Give me literally anybody from Memphis, considering everybody is in here on the Denver side. Just don't really find them to be a value piece, although Reggie Jackson was a guy that earlier in the day I had nearly 10% of, but thank God that has gone away. Other point guards you should probably be getting to in that range.
Well, that'll do it. 11 games up, 11 games down, and we did it in just about the right amount of time. We are pros at this. We are absolute pros. Now, if you want to watch live before lock to the 2,500 people that are here, you got to hit that like button. Your next screen is going black. If you want to see the rest of our coverage all the way up until 7 p.m., you need to hit that like button or else you are not getting the show. Good luck, everybody. Thanks to Eric for being here. Thanks to Sleeper for being the sponsor. Mild thanks to Jordan for clicking buttons on the backside. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yo, it's that time of week again, and what a week it's been. Maybe a little more than a week for the stochastic avatars all over the leaderboard. If you're trying to get involved, you want to get a free month stochastic package, any one of your choice up to $200 value, and get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here every single week. All you got to do, download the stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet us your wins with the screenshot, maybe a cool message as well at Stochastic Hall of Fame. As long as it's a field of 5,000 or more and you finish top 3, you are in. Let's get it started for the week. And we kick it off with our boy, Eric Lindquist. I'm not reading all that, brother, but I love you. $30,000 taking down chopping the fadeaway for 30K. Just an absolutely massive day for Eric, and we're very happy for him. He said a lot of nice things, but we only have so much time in the day. Peter Hanley, he's back, baby. 50K for Peter Hanley, taking down another one saying, keep it real. Tommy Stoke, how about this one? Our own Tommy, $113,000 on DraftKings. I'm no DFS pro, but using stochastic sims made me feel like one last night. Needless to say, chalk up a new high score, move over PokerStars Sunday warm-up. Here's my 113K lineup and how I basically clicked 3 buttons to create. You love to see that. The sims are working, and they're working well for every sport. Losing to a girl, shout out to the Sims tool. Also, screw you, Jabari Walker. I know this isn't a huge hit. Just want my free month of Sims. And Jorge's back. $60 in the 6,400. It's been a while, but here we are. Sixth, an amazing ROI with $60 entry, thanks to the fantastic tools and content by the boys. Alex M, let's go. Another win, $4,000. Second place in the three-point stance for Alex. Mike coming in hot with a $300 win. Down to his last $20 before he had to deposit again. Said, your tool saved me. I'm a believer. Best in the industry. Gary Wright, less than a week using the lineup generator and found myself in first place. Shout out to Gary. Chris, $1,750. A very simple man with at Stochastic HOF, but interesting screenshot because first place was Gridiron for $7,500, also rocking the Stochastic avatar. And Sean's back every single week. Monster night on DK. Shout out to the Stochastic crew. Best tools and content in the game. What's that? Almost $6,000 between two different contests. And CEO of Stochastic, Tom Kennedy, $50,000. Just saying decent. And then different sports, same Sims, 12,600. We just released the MMA Sims too, so that looks good. X Knight, what an awesome night. Finally managed to get my first Owner's Box Showdown win. NFL Sims Tool's been a game changer for me in my DFS journey. And Tyson with a $450 win in the end one. That's a tough one to win. Not to mention Slim Lancaster with a $2,000 win there. Second place was also another Stochastic avatar. Rob Stay growing the bankroll with a nice $700+ win here. And then you've got Michael Vassell. Thanks for the inflow. Watch your videos regularly to help build my lineups. Was able to get second in the 30K and one. Don't know if I used the right avatar. That's fine. It works. It says Stochastic. To get the free month, but still very thankful. Keep doing what you're doing. Shout out to all you guys. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. If you haven't been here before, if you have, welcome back. Remember, all you got to do to get involved, get a free $200 subscription to your choosing, is use the avatar at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins to us at Stochastic HOF. We'll see you back here next week.
What is happening, everybody? And it is time for a big NBA live before like 11 game slate. And we don't get very many 11 game slates anymore because typically we start to see some of, later games get left off slates these days. And yeah, 11 games. This is the biggest one I can remember in quite some time. A ton of value to be had on the slate too. So what we're going to ask of you guys as you come in is to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Sleeper, who is sponsoring our show today. And we're going to walk you through all the different value that exists on tonight's slate, myself and Matt Belman. But we're not going to tell you anything that's better value than signing up at Sleeper because you do get a deposit bonus there of up to $500. So if you guys put in $100, they're going to match you with $100 added to your account. And then on top of that, free square to take advantage of. They have over under 0.5 points for Giannis Antetokounmpo tonight for anybody new who signs up using our link. Matt, I know that you were prepared here to talk about DFS, but I'm going to ask you for a quick over under here. Over under 0.5 points for Giannis tonight.
I'm going to say over on that one.
All right, there we go. And with zero hesitation, Matt is confident, I am too. So guys, go sign up at Sleeper using the link we have below, and you are going to get up to $500 if that is what you want to deposit. But you don't have to. You can do 50, you can do 100, you can do 200. But most importantly, get that over 0.5 points for Giannis Antetokounmpo to take advantage of. So let's start talking about this slate as a whole here because it's a tricky one, man. And by the way, if you guys have questions for us as super chats, I'm sure Josh didn't answer any of those last show. We'll answer Discord questions you guys have as well. But where do you even start with your lineups, Matt? Because it's an 11-game slate. There's a whole bunch of players that are being ruled out. So what is most important to you on this 11-gamer?
I think the three most important things for me are Luka, Wemby, and Memphis. So I don't know. It seemed to me like the slate kind of builds itself, just considering all the value or a lot of the values funneled in Memphis. I don't think you have to go crazy off the board, to get different tonight. But I do think that a lot of lineups are going to be similar because Memphis you can't get away from Memphis. It's NBA DFS. Like, you just can't get away from all of them. And Luka and Wemby just look so good. Luka without Kyrie has been like James Harden Rockets good, if not better. Wemby's way underpriced, as Josh said on the last show. He's projected like Giannis, priced like Dame. So I think those are the three starting points. And then like everywhere else, it's about differentiating. How about you?
You know when it's a weird slate? It's a weird slate when there was a guy who was a DNP because he was inactive last game, is projected for nearly 80% ownership the next slate after that. So we've got Scotty, and it's not invalid either. But it goes to show there are so few players who are even available for Memphis today. We've got the two most exposed players on the slate in our ownership projections right now. So on DraftKings, we've got Scottie Pippen Jr. projected for nearly 80% ownership, David Roddy, 50% ownership. Then over on FanDuel, 65% projected ownership for Scottie Pippen, and then 61.5% ownership for David Roddy. Just looking at the most updated numbers over here, which came through about a minute ago. If you guys are stochastic stuff, Rich is here as well. We just ran the updates for all of that. I don't know how you avoid Memphis. They only have a few players active, and they're all fairly cheap. It's a spot you absolutely have to get to.
Yeah, I agree. The other, I guess, fourth thing, a far fourth, but to me, and this has stood out all day to me that I haven't heard mentioned, shooting guard is so weak. Like, the top is okay because it's the top. You could always play like Anthony Edwards or Donovan Mitchell, but those guys do not stand out on this slate because of Luka and other expensive guys. And then it gets ugly real quick. I think a guy like Donovan Mitchell, for me, is more in play because of that. Just because I don't like shooting guard. I know Cam Thomas is getting a lot of love there, and I get it, but I don't feel great about that chalk. So for me, like, I think the Memphis chalk is unavoidable. The rest of it, I think you can make cases to get away from.
Also, something of note here for Memphis is that they have right now, unless I'm missing somebody, 8 players potentially active. You have to have 8 players to field an NBA team. They're 8 guys. They have Jaren Jackson Jr., Vince Williams, Santi Aldama, David Roddy, Jacob Gilliard, Gigi Jackson, Xavier Tillman, Scottie Pippen. That is 8 right there.
They signed Matthew Hurt today.
Sorry, what was that?
They signed Matthew Hurt today. So okay, I think he's a ninth.
So the other thing I was going to add is that Vince Williams Jr. is listed as questionable. If he's ruled active but isn't in the starting lineup, don't be surprised if he's somebody who's only there for emergency situations. So that was just one other piece of the Memphis Grizzlies that I wanted to add, is that they do have Vince Williams Jr. listed as questionable. But yeah, Matthew Hurt did sign that 10-day contract. Curious, Rich, because he's not somebody we could play in DFS, but is he somebody you're allocating minutes to, Rich?
Yeah, he is someone I'm allocating minutes to. I'm trying to pull it up real quick.
Sure.
I'm only giving him 11 minutes. He's not playable because he's not in the salary file for either site. And it's too late now for them to add him anyways, even though I don't think DraftKings would have, but FanDuel sometimes does. Regardless, he's really just taken away minutes from some other guys. So that's really it.
Yeah, it's a spot where really hard to get away from. One other question I want to ask you really quick, Rich, before we get away from Memphis. Of the cheap guys on the team, who do you feel best about the minutes projections for? Cheap guys on Memphis.
So by cheap, would you say around like 4K or under, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so it's kind of like everybody other than like Aldama, Vince Williams, and Jaren Jackson Jr.
All right. I would say I'm least confident in Gigi Jackson. Most confident and probably Scottie Pippen, as weird as that may seem.
All right, there we have. Just kind of curious to get what your thoughts were, because it's a very odd situation. We haven't seen something like this with, well, any team this year. It's a very end of season sort of situation. So, Rich, appreciate your insights there. And now let's start getting to some people's questions here. We've got Jordan, which one did they answer last show? Okay, so he skipped the one directly asked to Eric? Okay, so first question here is from CW89. So somebody's question is going to get answered twice. You are the lucky man of the evening. CW89 is asking us if we can only play one, Brunson or Tatum. And also, if you wouldn't mind, Jordan, throw up on the player compared to a list. We've got Jalen Brunson on one side, Jason Tatum on the other side. You couldn't have imagined coming into the season that somebody would be asking us a 1v1 of Jason Tatum versus Jalen Brunson, but the Celtics are a super deep team. They've got a lot of guys take up usage each night. We've got Julius Randle out for the Knicks, which puts Brunson in more of a bigger spot to take up more of the usage. I mean, the ball is going to have to be in his hands constantly because not only is Randle somebody who does play with the ball in his hands a lot and has a lot of usage, just also a primary facilitator for the Knicks. So see right here, we have it on screen. Very, very close between the two. 50.5% going towards Brunson in our projections, 49.5% of the time. Jason Tatum outscores him. The ownership is also really even. I mean, this looks like a coin flip, but do you have a lean one way or the other here, Matt? Jalen Brunson or Jason Tatum?
I don't. Two premium positions. I guess the small forward eligibility for Tatum might be why he's slightly more likely to be optimal. Our tools like Tatum slightly more. Like at first thought, I like Brunson slightly more. It's a toss-up to me.
I'm going to go Brunson. It's a real 50-50 one. I mean, we had it 50.5% to Brunson in that simulation compared to 49.5 for Jason Tatum in terms of who scores the other one more often. So very close. You can't go wrong either way. CW, both good options, but I'll lean a little bit more towards Brunson there. Aaron Dyson asks, quick question for Eric. Who gets the bump from Houston? So I'm not exactly sure what this is in relation to. I assume probably, I don't even know because it's not like, I mean, Tari Eason's out, but he's been out. The injury report is fairly normal looking for Houston. Is there anybody that you like from the Rockets tonight, Matt?
No, I'm not sure what the Houston news is. There's no one that stands out to me from Houston. I think their main guys are playable as like last pieces and guys that aren't getting a lot of love, Sengun, Jalen Green, but no priorities for me at all.
Yeah, let me go ahead and look at my Houston exposure. My most rostered player on the entire team is Sengun at 6% ownership right now. He's in 6% of my lineups. So that's the guy I have the most of, but there's no real priorities for me from Houston. So unfortunately, missing the context here, Aaron, and I blame Eric because he fucked up by not answering your question before. We've got Sam Van Dam says, sorry, I'm dumb. No, of course you're not dumb, Sam. But he wants to know, does Derek White benefit with Kristaps Porzingis out? So here's what we've seen with the Celtics in games that Porzingis has been out this year. They play more small ball lineups. So that benefits both Jrue Holiday as well as Derek White. Al Horford is in. We do have Porzingis out. Earlier in the day, they were both listed as questionable. Something else as well. Luke Kornet is out. So that does limit one of the options for the Celtics to play more traditional, bigger lineups. So yeah, I view this as something that benefits both Derek White as well as Jrue Holiday, as guys who could pick up a couple of extra minutes. Neither of them are guys that I'm dying to play on this slate or anything, but we could expect them to play extra minutes with Porzingis and Kornet both out.
I completely agree. I think they both get bumps.
We've got Josh of Los Angeles says, thanks for breaking down this monster. Kudos to both. I'm fairly sure that was a question directed at Josh and Eric before, but I'll take credit for it. So thank you very much for the super chat, Josh from Los Angeles. And then Nicholas Lynn is saying, thanks for the help, fellas. Is it bad strategy that I'm only getting to Wemby from the highest total game in a 20 max? So we've got the San Antonio Spurs taking on the Washington Wizards today. Between the Spurs and the Wizards, outside of Wemby, is there anything else that you're really liking from that game?
When I first looked at this slate, that game jumped out at me. And I think everyone that's going to get minutes in that game is in play. But how this slate has broken down with Memphis, the only lock is Wemby, at least to me. How about you?
Yeah, it is. From that game, I don't have any player in more than 10% of my lineups other than Wemby. And Wemby's one of my most rostered players on the entire slate. I'm pretty confused why sites have not priced him up more aggressively. especially consider the minutes limit's been coming up. We know that he's not somebody who's playing, like 20 or 19 minutes or anything like that anymore. And he's just crushing every single night. So Wemby should be far more expensive than he is. So Nicholas, play a good amount of Wemby tonight, but no, if you're playing 20 lineups today and Wemby's the only player you have exposure to from that game, totally fine. No issues with that. Anthony Masilli wants to know for FanDuel, favorite play for each position, but it can't be the Memphis guys. All right, so let me pull up my lineups for FanDuel here. So favorite options from each team, but it cannot be the Memphis guys. Do you have lineups to look at for FanDuel? If not, I'll just go position by position, Matt.
You got it.
Okay, so for me at point guard, and keeping in mind it can't be the Memphis guys because this would be Scottie Pippen Jr., but I'm not allowed to pick him. So Jalen Brunson for me at point guard, Dante DiVincenzo at shooting guard. Can't be David Roddy at small forward, so I'll have to go with Cameron Thomas instead. I think this is a good spot for Cam Thomas. I know that Matt was a little skeptical just the ownership on him, but still, he should be one of your most rostered small forwards. You're playing a handful of lineups, in my opinion. Power forward, that's going to be Wemby for me over on FanDuel. And then center, oh my God, I mean, we got Aldama here, Wemby, Jaren Jackson Jr., so all guys that I've either already answered or not allowed to. So Nick Claxton as my next most favorite center option there. So Anthony, thank you very much for the super chat. And those are my favorite non-Memphis players at each position. If I was allowed to answer Memphis, it would have been a Memphis guy at just about every single position. Phil Senzig is asking for the velvet rope play of the day, Matt, but there's also a follow-up to this. He wants to know Gilliard or Pippen. But first, velvet rope play of the day. Who are we keeping out of our lineups tonight, Matt? Who's too popular?
So I've been thinking about this, and it might have just changed because OG Anunoby got ruled out. Was he even questionable?
So there's an insane part about this. So no, he was not on the injury report. Because somebody called me earlier and asked, what do I do about the Knicks? He wanted to bet a Josh Hart prop. One of my friends called me and he said, does Josh Hart over rebounds look good now that Anunoby's out? And I'm going, what are you talking about? He's not even on the injury report. And then he goes and looks, he goes, I screwed up. I thought that he said, I saw that RJ Barrett got ruled out and I thought it said OG Anunoby. He called me. Now Anunoby got ruled out. This is an incredible mindfuck here. I don't know how this happened, but yeah, this came out of absolute nowhere because he was not on the injury report.
No. So my velvet rope play was Quentin Grimes, but now I need to go back because now Quentin Grimes becomes much more viable with no Anunoby. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to answer both questions, two birds and one stone. I prefer Pippen over Gilliard, and Gilliard is the velvet rope play. He is not a good DFS player. Josh mentioned on the last show, this is a guy that needs scorers around him because he's not looking to score. He doesn't do much. I know he's cheap enough where you can just play him anyways, but we have so much value. I think he's an actively bad play personally. So yeah, I prefer Pippen over him also.
All right. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. And let's talk about the importance of OG Anunoby in a second here. I want to answer one more super chat from Ace of Spade because he's asking us about DK tiers. And then we can bring Rich in here to talk a little bit about the Knicks because this news just came out of nowhere. And meanwhile, my friend Nick here is texting me saying they're like, hey, I told you, I knew, which I still can't believe that just broke down the way it did. But anyway, DK tiers. Let's go through the best options in each tier. Starting with tier one, it's Luka. It's just clearly Luka right now in tier one when he's an option with Kyrie Irving out. So Luka tier one, tier two for me, that is going to be SGA. Also fairly crazy that SGA is a tier two guy now. Tier three, that is going to be Brunson because of Julius Randle being out. Tier four, that is Wemby because Wemby should be in tier two. Honestly, if Wemby was in tier two, I would pick him over SGA. So Wemby in tier four is fairly ridiculous. Tier 5, Jaren Jackson Jr. with everybody out for Memphis. And then tier 6 is going to be Miles Bridges for me. So Ace of Spade, thank you very much for the super chat. But now let's bring Rich in to talk about this OG Anunoby situation, which just from the clouds for no reason at all. He is unable to play tonight. He's been ruled out. Rich, how does this impact the Knicks?
This is pretty crazy because one of the guys that rarely ever plays, it probably would have benefited the most from this is Evan Fournier. And not that we needed like more value, but Evan Fournier is also ruled out already. So the Knicks have a bunch of like weird guards, shooting guards, point guards that are just going to have to get minutes. I mean, you have Dylan Windler, who's an old Cavs player that was absolute dog shit for all the years he was here. He's going to get minutes. I think there's a chance Jericho Sims and like one of the centers between Precious and Hartenstein. I mean, they probably have to share the floor, if nothing else, for a few minutes just to like take the ease in the matchup with Charlotte, who also isn't the greatest team. Knicks also play tomorrow, so this is like the first leg of a back-to-back. So there's a chance they're not going to like run their Jalen Brunson, Steven Chenzo, they're good players that are active tonight into the ground tonight and then be dog shit tomorrow. So I mean it's going to be weird. It's hard to like break this one down, to be honest with you, because they just have so many like point guards and shooting guards who aren't very tall. They're just going to have to get minutes.
I think we're going to see more Hartenstein next to Precious Achiuwa tonight. There's just only so many guys they could go to. And then we also have to consider who the coaches of the Knicks, which is Tibbs. And he doesn't like to run deep rotations. He doesn't trust his guys that come off the bench for him. So, I mean, we could see some Hartenstein and Precious Achiuwa today, Miles McBride, Quentin Grimes. The one thing I do feel pretty good about, and I do think, Rich, what you brought up a good point, if there was a rational coach for the New York Knicks, which is let's play for tomorrow. Tom Thibodeau's never done that in his entire life. Whatever he's got for today, he's running his guys into the ground. So if this was a normal coach, I would also think like, hey, do we have to be concerned about playing time for the Knicks? I would not be surprised at all if we end up seeing 40 plus minutes out of Jalen Brunson with everybody else out now.
I just want to mention on your Hartenstein take real quick. His first game back from that injury was like the last game he played. He only played 16 minutes, so I don't see him getting like a ton of minutes here. Mm-hmm. So if they played like him next to Precious, then I guess Jericho Sims would get a lot of center minutes. Again, it's just kind of like a overall weird situation, because how many minutes can Hartenstein really play after only playing 16 the last time out?
So let's boil it down to this to make it clear for the people who are watching. The Knicks we actually want to roster tonight, right? We want to roster Jalen Brunson. And it's a big slate. Keep in mind that as well. It's 11-game slate. So even guys like Isaiah Hartenstein, well, you could say there's potential for them to have upside. I don't think that's a spot where I really want to go, because it's such a big slate. There's certain risks you don't have to take. You just cannot play Hartenstein. So the players we definitely want to play, Jalen Brunson, no doubt about it. Want to get Jalen Brunson into lineups. We want Dante DiVincenzo exposure. We want Josh Hart exposure, right? Those are the three core guys I really want from the Knicks. And then as far as punt options go, I find Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride to be in play for me today. Not as guys who I want to have in like 30, 40% of my lineups, but if these are guys who are showing up in like maybe 10 to 20% of lineups, I would be totally cool with that. And I think actually Quentin Grimes, I could see making it into more of my, Quentin Grimes is probably going to be in a sizable portion of lineups for me now. Miles McBride is more of a pump type option. So those are the 5 Knicks that I'm actually looking to play tonight.
Yeah, I get that. For me, a couple things on what you guys talked about. I understand the playing tomorrow aspect of it, but who knows who they're going to have tomorrow? I mean, Randall's out a couple weeks. Who knows what the Anunoby injury is? This might be the squad that they're dealing with tomorrow also. And they're playing Charlotte tonight. They're like 10-point favorites. So I'm sure they want to get this win. It also makes me like the Charlotte side more. No Randall inside. No Anunoby, who's their best offender. There is a team, they're missing LaMelo Ball. Their guys already looked better. This game just became more appealing. I think the guy for me that gets the biggest boost is Precious. I already liked him. I think they have no choice but to play him big minutes, whether it's at the 5 or the 4.
You're not going to believe what just happened. Vince Williams just ruled out. So now Memphis really doesn't have guys to play. So I thought that they were what I was really hoping was going to happen was going to be that Vince Williams is going to be active and not start. And then he'd be a guy who I'd be confident saying like, all right, he's active in emergency scenario, but he's going to play 0 minutes. And I thought there'd be an edge to this. I'm fairly surprised that they just ruled him outright. I mean, at the other point too, Memphis sucks. All their key players are out. So why do they even give a shit about whether they win or lose or what any of the angles are here? But now that Vince Williams is out, they are going to be running the dumbest rotation of all time tonight. It's going to be Jaren Jackson Jr. playing by himself, and he's kind of been a disaster as the number 1 option. Still have to consider him for DFS purposes because who else is going to take shots for them? They have an 8-man rotation tonight of Triple J, Santi Aldama, David Roddy, Jacob Gilyard, Gigi Jackson, Xavier Tillman, Scottie Pippen, and Matthew Hurt, who probably doesn't even exist. The guy's an NPC. He was computer generated by an NBA 2K game just to fill out Memphis's rotation tonight. Matt, what do you make of Vince Williams now being out? It seems like there's no way to get away from the Memphis Grizzlies at all.
I loved your call earlier about him coming off the bench and just completely avoiding him because he probably wasn't going to play in that point. Now, it's more about who you don't play from Memphis. Hurt isn't in the player pool, so that leaves you down to 7 guys.
One to roll out.
Yeah. Tillman, they don't really seem to like playing big minutes at all. He'll play more tonight because they have 7 guys. Gilliard and Tillman seem like the easiest to get away from. And then you've got the other 5. Jaren Jackson's expensive. That's the biggest problem with him. He's been good from a DFS perspective. So you're right. Can't ignore him. I'm like least apt to get to him though, because he's in the same pricing tier as Wemby, So at some point, if you roster Luka and Wemby or whoever, high price studs, it's hard to get to Jaren Jackson. So Roddy, Aldama, Pippen, and Gigi Jackson all look like locks to me. I think that earlier when Rich was talking about Gigi Jackson being the most risky, I agreed, and I still might agree, but he also has the most upside as far as I'm concerned. And now they just have no choice but to play him minutes. They already wanted to give him run. I find it very hard to get rid of those 4 guys. So that's just me. How about you?
Yeah, I see that Rich is working on the projections right now, and this is one that is going to take up an enormous amount of brain cells. So I'm not gonna go to Rich until I see the projections update, because how do you figure out what to do with Memphis? This is a nearly impossible to figure scenario. But I'm looking through the rotation and the depth chart right now, and here's one thing we know about Jaren Jackson Jr., right? If the game's a blowout, he's not going to be playing garbage time considering the other players who are active. And that is definitely something that's a little bit of a risk at this point for this Memphis Grizzlies team. I like Gigi Jackson quite a bit now as a torrent. Honestly, I can make a case for just about everybody on this team as a contrarian play, or not as a contrarian play, as a value play at this point. There's nobody I dislike other than Matthew Hurt, and that's solely because we can't play him. He's not an option.
I do think a point that you kind of, I don't know if you're trying to make, but I thought of when you were talking, I do think like Tillman and Gilliard are way less owned than everyone else. So there's ownership merit in going to those guys, even though they're not as good at plays. Especially Gilliard's not a good fantasy producer, but I mean, we're talking about him versus Scottie Pippen. It's not like it'd be the craziest thing in the world if he outscores Pippen tonight, even though I don't expect it.
So let's try to do some sort of ranking system in terms of what our priorities are. And for me, the highest priority is going to be Pippen, right? So he's somebody who I can't do without him, right? I need him in line. So you guys are playing cash games, you should absolutely be playing Scottie Pippen tonight. As far as the lower priority players, I'm going to say the ones I have the least interest in are Jacob Gilliard and Xavier Tillman. Those are the 2 I have the least interest. So that's bottom tier. That's F tier of the Grizzlies. And then we've got SS God tier is going to be Scottie Pippen. If we go through the rest of these guys now, I'm going to put David Roddy in second tier. He goes just below Scottie Pippen. Would you agree with that?
It's 4,400. I think
he was already playing decent minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Roddy, Aldama, and Gigi Jackson all look so similar to me. I do think Roddy's the safest, though, in that group, so I'll give that to you.
And then this is where we start to get guys grouped together, right? So after you go tier 1, I go Pippen. Tier 2 is where I'm going David Roddy. Bottom tier for me is Gilliard and Tillman. Everybody else is somewhere in between, like Santi Aldama, Gigi Jackson. Everybody else is in between in that kind of middle tier. It's guys who I'm going to have in my lineups, but I'm not going to have as much exposure to those players as I will to like Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, and Memphis is just unavoidable here. It's just a matter of who you don't play. Yeah, Roddy's now 4th and overall on our boom bust tool. Like the Vince Williams news is like big. He is eating up so much usage, so it's crazy to think that Vince Williams being out has changed Memphis, but that's where we are.
Let's bring Rich back, and he just pushed the projections update, and we've got really the dumbest players ever projected for a lot of fantasy points by necessity, because you've never seen a team in the NBA score 0 points. Somebody has to actually put the ball through the hoop. Even if they only score 70 points, a bunch of guys are going to hit value in this game because they're all so cheap. So, Rich, now that you've updated projections, what's standing out the most to you about Memphis without Vince Williams? It's an 8-man rotation.
I kind of alluded to this earlier in a quick little write-up I did, but I mean, now they only have 8 guys, so people are going to have to play, right? But if they were ever going to get like blown out or just kind of raise the white flag early, I think Jaren Jackson and Xavier Tillman would be the 2 that played the least amount of minutes, just because they're veterans and obviously have a piece on this team in the future. Whereas, Scottie Pippen, Gilliard, Roddy, Gigi Jackson, and then Matt Hurt could just play all the minutes just because, they don't want to risk further injury to their already just terrible season that's been plagued with injuries. So I'm kind of hesitant to pay up for Jaren Jackson, even though he's in a great spot. And Xavier Tillman's minutes are so fragile. I wish we could play Matt Hurt, to be honest, but I do like Gigi Jackson a whole lot more now. Like Matt said, I think his minutes just became a whole lot safer, and he definitely has huge upside. And then you guys are right on the nail. Scottie Pippen Jr. is the one guy I'm for sure playing no matter what.
My favorite thing about the Grizzlies tonight, 8-man rotation, only 8 guys active. They have 11 players who are out tonight for them. They have 11 guys who are out. So, and they have to keep signing additional guys, like bringing them up from the G League, sign guys in 10-day contracts. Everybody keeps getting hurt. Never seen anything like before. 11 players out on the injury report. And it's an actual playoff team of players, literally a team that made the playoffs. They got their entire core team when they were in the playoffs, other than Jaren Jackson Jr. out for them tonight. We've got Morant, Zaire Williams, Vince Williams Jr., Steven Adams, Jake LaRavia, Brandon Clark, Desmond Bane, John Conchar, Luke Kennard, Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart. Those are all the players who are out for Memphis. That is an above 500 team that they have listed as out or doubtful on the injury report tonight. So pretty crazy stuff today. We'll get into your Discord questions in a second, but first I want to shout out our Apple friend, Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, thank you very much for that. And as always, thank you for supporting the YouTube channel. And now we'll get into Discord. And for anybody who isn't in our Discord channel, here's how you get access. Sign up for a Stochastic membership. Sign up for any of the ones that we have below in the description box, which could be our Sims package. If you want to sign up for a Sims package, which is what I'm using every night to build out my NBA lineups, the contest generator, the simulation tool, you could sign up for a Sims package. If you just want to sign up for the NBA lineup generator, which is less than $15, one thing that comes with that is also access to our Discord channel. So it gets you access to myself, Lee, and Rich all night. So as we update lineups, we tell you guys what's changing about our lineups and any kind of projection updates. So sign up for a package. You get access to our Discord channel. And you could also ask us questions over the course of the shows as well. So let's see what your guys' questions are here. Starting with one from Father of 3. He wants to know, how many unique players should he have in his 20 max lineups? I don't really think of DFS in that way in terms of how many players I have in my player pool. So I don't have a great answer for you. How many players? It's also going to depend on the size of the slate. So for today, there's so many value options on an 11-game slate. I'm going to end up with exposure to more players on an 11-game slate here today than we're probably even in the player pool entirely yesterday on a 3-game slate. So every slate is different, Father of 3, and I think you're making a mistake if every day you build your lineups and say, hey, I'm playing 20 lineups, therefore I can only have 26 players or whatever the number is you're thinking of. So I would say it's not something you should put all that much thought into. Just you're playing the best lineups you possibly can every night. Some nights that might mean you're only rostering 15 guys. Other nights might mean, like 50 guys or something. Captain Akella wants to know, who's our favorite single entry option, Matt?
Favorite single entry option. There's so many good plays on this slate. I'm going to go to Dante DiVincenzo. Our tools love him now. I talked about how shooting guard's pretty weak. Shooting guard and small forward eligible. Premium positions here. 5,900. He's starting. So is Josh Hart and Precious. So the Knicks are getting overlooked here because of Memphis. And I get it. Memphis looks slightly better on paper. But if it weren't for Memphis here, all these Knicks would be getting so much love. You've got Hartenstein potentially, or definitely not playing full minutes. Julius Randle out. Anunoby out. So this is a team like, if you think about 3 weeks ago, no Randle, no Barrett, no Quickly, Hartenstein restricted. Like the Knicks look really good matched up with Charlotte. And the ownership will be there, but not as much as I think it should be. So give me DiVincenzo.
I'm going to go with Luka here, who's not picking up a crazy amount of ownership. Like we got right around 20% ownership going to Luka, but it's so easy to get to him now. We've got unlimited amount of value. I don't even think it matters because I know a lot of people think about like, oh, he is 11,800. Therefore, he has to score 68 fantasy points or 70, whatever number people come up with. I think the raw points matter more than anything. We've got unlimited value on today's slate. I think Luka is going under. Luka should be like 50% owned when you consider the amount of value available to us.
I think he will be in like single entry contests.
Very possible. Very possible. But people are going to play Luka. People are going to play Wemby. Wemby's going to be super popular today. Yeah. I'm going to go with Luka. I like Luka quite a bit. Another super chat that came up here. Wally Balls is saying, swept first and second in tiers on Saturday, thanks to Discord and the News God alerts. Was able to swap off Embiid and get more ancillary Sixers in only a few minutes. Discord in itself is worth any package. Look at that. Wally Balls. I don't even have to add anything to this. This guy's doing an ad read for me. I should have done ad reads today. I could have just read Wally Balls super chat here. Thank you, Wally. Really do appreciate that. And shout out to News God also, because News God is always, man, working hard, bringing us all the news in the Discord channel. So thank you very much for the super chat. That is very much appreciated. And of course, we just got some additional news here, and it is that Anthony Davis is likely to play today. So that's good. We don't have additional players ruled out here. Anthony Davis likely to play. Don't screw with us here, Lakers. Don't do goofy shit. We don't need more value opening up at this point. All right, next question in Discord. This one is coming to us from I gotta scroll back up now because my notification. Here we go. Mr. Coolcam, favorite players at each position for a FanDuel single entry. Okay, so this is going to incorporate a lot of those Grizzlies players. Earlier, I got asked this question. I wasn't allowed to answer Grizzlies. I'm allowed to for this one. And it's pretty much all Memphis players. Point guard is Scottie Pippen Jr. Shooting guard is Dante DiVincenzo, though. Small forward, David Roddy. Power forward, Santi Aldama. Center, Victor Wembanyama. Thank you very much for the question there, Mr. Coolcam. And then another super chat from R. Gravy. Who's a forward you like for $4,200 or less? It can't be a Memphis guy. He's already got all the Memphis guys in. All of them. So
what was the price range?
It is a $4,200 or less. I'm looking over here as well. All right, so for $4,200 or less, at forward, keep in mind as well. I don't know how, but I don't try to bring every question that we get asked back to Eric, but somehow every time somebody asks us for a player he likes in a certain position, he always answers with a player in the wrong position, like 9 out of 10 times. It's remarkable. So that's why I want to say, reminder that it should be a forward we're looking at here. That's going to be Quentin Grimes for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so if it's 4,200, but it can't be one of the Memphis guys, then Quentin Grimes is next man up. Next question that we have here is from John DeCano. He said, is Grimes in play even though he isn't starting? Thanks for all you do. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting Grimes to start. Not that I was saying it would, not that I'm saying I thought it would be impossible for him to start, but the Knicks have so few players that they could even go to at this point that I still have to envision that Quentin Grimes is going to be playing a meaningful amount of minutes. The Knicks starting lineup, by the way, is Brunson, DiVincenzo, Hart, Achua, and Hartenstein. So we were speculating before that Achua and Hartenstein could potentially play minutes together. So I do think that with Achua starting, that does solidify that thesis that we had before. And Matt was on Achua before, somebody who liked quite a bit. Grimes is still playable off the bench, though. So I don't see any issue with getting exposure to him.
Same. I hate his ownership. He's the most negatively leveraged player in our tools, but it just shows he's a good play at 3,700. So it makes sense.
And now we've got, let's read off some more of these questions in Discord. And here we go. Miami High Life. Name 2 players ROI that you are boosting the most. Name 2 players you're giving negative boost to in the Sims. So for me, I'm going to run everything and I'm not going to be changing anything for this. Like, there are so many players that are out at this point. Like, I don't even know how you take any sort of, like, you don't even have to adjust for, there's no injury news we're really waiting for that's going to massively change my lineups, especially because, so Tyrese Maxey being questionable would matter a ton, as would Tobias Harris, but it's the last game on the slate. It's not one we have to worry about. We have all of the most important injury news already. So there's nothing I feel like I need to adjust to prepare myself for. And that's usually what I'm doing. Like, I'm not building lineups in the Sims tool and then just arbitrarily saying, oh, I want this guy to be in a lot more lineups than this guy or anything like that. I'm generally trying to situate my lineups in a way where I'm doing positive and negative ROI boosts to give myself more flexibility for when I'm doing late swaps later. There's nothing like that I see that I have to prepare for today, other than, you know, there's going to be a starting lineup for Memphis. Who knows what the hell that could end up being. But I'm already going to have a lot of Memphis exposure where it's going to be easy for me to pivot off of. But is there anything you're reserving spots for in your lineups for news later, Matt?
No, definitely not. I mean, we've got so much news already. It would take like Giannis or Jokic being out for it to like dramatically change the slate at this point. Wemby being out, something of that ilk, which it's the NBA. It can always happen, but you could say that any single night. So no, I mean, we've gotten all the news. Memphis literally can't rule anyone else out or they're not playing. So
the thing that's funny about is, I mean, the answer, if this question was asked to us, if I would have read it 10 minutes ago, would have been the LeBron and AD situation with them both being listed as questionable. But now that we know that they're both in, it's not really something that is really on my mind here. So I'm just gonna play it as is with the Sims and see what I end up getting to. Jets World is asking us. Oh, well, first, Gelby is saying for FanDuel, who do we prefer, Ish Smith or Scottie Pippen? Scottie Pippen over Ish Smith.
Oh my God. I mean, you can't play Ish Smith on this slate now. I mean, on a normal slate without all this Memphis news, yeah, Ish Smith with no LaMelo, 4,300. Sure. And he could beat Pippen, but he's 800 more. And if you're playing one lineup, definitely no.
Yeah, Scottie Pippen for me there, Gelby. Scottie Pippen for me. Then Jets World is saying that he's playing Gigi, Pippen Jr., and Roddy, last man in Aldama or Hart on DK. So he's already got 3 Memphis guys. Aldama or Hart? That's still Aldama over Hart for me.
Yeah, same.
Still Aldama over Hart. I don't have any issue with loading up on Memphis. Is there an amount of Memphis Grizzlies that you would see in a single lineup that you would view as being like a big issue for you, Matt?
No. I think you're making a mistake if you're playing like less than 3. That said, doesn't guarantee they're going to be 3 on the winners tonight because there's so many good spots. But on paper, anytime you get a situation like this in the NBA, like NBA is all about projections and minutes. Like, it's not MLB. So you just kind of got to follow it.
Next question that we have in here is coming to us from JEW on FanDuel. Assuming you're using 1 point guard spot for Pippen, would you use the other one for Brunson or Luka? Yes. So in the FanDuel lineups that I have built, Pippen is my most rostered point guard by a mile. He actually shows up in every single lineup. And then I get to Brunson more than I get to Luka. But Luka was my 3rd most rostered point guard for what it's worth. But Brunson over Luka in the lineups that I built. And then we've got Rico Rod saying for a FanDuel single entry, Cam Thomas or PJ Washington. Yeah, I prefer Cam Thomas to PJ Washington.
Same, although I don't think it's a slam dunk. I will say PJ Washington starting at power forward with Nick Richards makes me like Richards more. We already know there's no Mark Williams. This matchup, all of a sudden, again, New York is missing a ton of bodies inside. Hartenstein's not going to play a ton. Precious is a little bit undersized to play the 5. Like, I like this Charlotte front court, Bridges and Nick Richards specifically.
Not the point of anything we're doing here, but the logic of Tom Thibodeau insisting on playing Jericho Sims over Precious Achiuwa when Hartenstein is out, but then Hartenstein comes back, so then Achiuwa plays over Sims. It makes no sense at all logically. It's the dumbest thing ever. Coaches just drive me crazy with the thought process sometimes. But that aside, we got some more questions answered here in the Discord. One from Shady Great, who said, what is the max amount of Grizzlies that I'd be okay with in a lineup? Even though it's an 11-game slate, if you had 4 Grizzlies in a lineup, I don't think that's an issue. You can make a case for 5 as well. I would say that's the max I would do, though. In general, it's 4. In certain scenarios, I'd be okay with 5. I wouldn't do 6, though. That would be a little much.
I agree.
And right, gonna do one more run of lineups over here for myself.
If there was ever a
some
slate to
reason.
play 6, though, this is it. Because they're all going to get run. And the only real concern you have, like if Memphis does play well here, if Memphis like plays really well and scores well from a fantasy perspective, the only concern you have is whether Matthew Hurt does too much of the damage, which I know he was playing well in the G League, but I just can't see it. I cannot see it.
Let's see. We've got some more super chats here to answer. James Magruder is asking us for the top play at each position as a final rundown, which, yeah, I will actually have these lineups finished being simmed here. Not too long here, and then I'll be able to say what my final players I'm getting the most of at each spot. But then he's also asking us for last man in Grimes or Gilliard. I prefer Grimes to Gilliard.
Same.
So other part of this, favorite player at each position. Starting at point guard, that is going to be Scottie Pippen Jr. for me. How about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, point guard is going to be Pippen Jr. and Luka. I'll say I like both a ton.
Okay. Yeah. Luka, another one that we definitely are going to be wanting to get to a lot of. How about you for yourself at shooting guard? Who's your favorite overall shooting guard play on the slate?
Donovan Mitchell. Maybe that was a Freudian slip, but Dante DiVincenzo.
What did you say first?
I was going to say, I don't know why Donovan Mitchell was in my head. So I don't know, but Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, sorry about that.
All good. All right. DiVincenzo for myself as well, by the way. Small forward. Which way are you going to go here?
G.G. Jackson.
I'm going to go with hot body David Roddy. David Roddy. That's my option there. It's small forward, power forward. Which way are you looking?
Roddy.
Power forward. I'm going to go with Wemby. How about center?
Wemby.
Center for me. By the way, I think I answered. Roddy doesn't have small forward eligibility. He's power forward center. So I'm going to switch some of this up. I'm going to throw in, I'll go Josh Hart at small forward instead. And then for center, I'll go with Aldama as my answer. So there we go. Top players that I'm getting to at each position right now. And there's a lot of these guys too, who I just have a ton of exposure to. Even for I can't remember having this condensed ownership on some spots for an 11 game slate, but like Scottie Pippen Jr., David Roddy, as well as Wemby, DiVincenzo. I'm getting just a ton of these guys for this slate. Next question here is R. Gravy said he already has Grimes in his lineup. How about Kelly Olynyk? All right, so 4,200 at forward. It can't be a Memphis player, and it can't be Quentin Grimes now either. All right, let's pull this back up. 4,200. Can't be a Memphis player. Can't be Quentin Grimes. Oof. Boy, the options kind of suck past then. I'm going to say Royce O'Neal, but he's not somebody I really want to be playing.
I'll say Olynyk, but I think you're just making a mistake playing that much value with all the, like how you playing all the Memphis value, Grimes, and you need another value play under 4K. Something's not adding up.
I agree with that. See what the next question is. It's Avi Schreier says Booker or Mitchell on FanDuel tonight. Do you prefer Booker or Mitchell?
I think Mitchell, but similar plays in my mind.
I am going to go with Mitchell. And I know that Booker's had a couple of ridiculous games in a row here, but Booker still has to share the ball with Bradley Beal, with Kevin Durant. Mitchell's not sharing the ball with anybody now. I know that they're getting Evan Mobley back. That's not going to massively impact Mitchell. When Garland comes back, it's going to be a different story. For now, I feel much better about Mitchell's projection and production on a day-to-day basis than Devin Booker. So Mitchell for me. We've got Philly Phantom 1 asking, who is the best Jaren Jackson GPP pivot? No extra salary. Okay, so he has, I'm assuming, Jackson in his lineup, wants to take him out. Who's the player at that salary price point that you liked the most and instead of Jaren Jackson Jr.?
This is easy for me. Miles Bridges. Just talked about him. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I like Bridges as well. I actually have Bridges in my single entry lineup. I just uploaded it.
I'm a big fan tonight. I mean, already playing well. See the boost with no LaMelo. Weak Hornets or weak Knicks front court. Just a weaker Knicks team tonight. So I like Miles Bridges as a direct pivot.
All right. And Yusuf Nurkic is going to be available to play today. So another reason to, not that this would have massively impacted Booker, but another reason to like Mitchell over Booker in that 1v1 we got before. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't signed up, it's Sleeper free square tonight on over 0.5 points for Giannis, as well as a deposit match bonus of up to $500. Let's see what else we have coming in here. This next one is from Jake Swales, DK Tiers. He wants to know. Yeah, I'll pull DK Tiers back up. And tiers, tier 1, Luka, tier 2, SGA, tier 3, Jalen Brunson, tier 4, Wemby, tier 5, Jaren Jackson Jr., tier 6 for me, Miles Bridges, who we just talked about before. Nate Meg Official, Luka and Wemby or Jokic and Brunson? That is Luka and Wemby for me.
Luka and Wemby. Oh, easily Luka Wemby for me. Now, Luka and Wemby will be a lot higher owned.
Yeah.
So there's that. But like projection-wise, it's probably like a 15-point difference probably.
Next question here is, who are our favorite plays at 7,800 or under for any position except point guard on FanDuel? Okay, so let's see. 7,800 favorite option can't be a point guard. Okay, that is Nick Claxton for me. Nick Claxton, right at 7,800. That's somebody I like in that range. Next question here is from Mr. Sledge to you. Wants to know, is Fontecchio a good pivot off of Roddy? No. Emax says, is 100% of Scottie Pippen Jr. okay? Yes, it is. I don't have an issue with that. Luista, 11. Nick Richards or Aldama for last man, and I prefer Aldama to Richards. Richards in play, but Aldama's a higher priority. We've got Einstein saying McBride getting no ownership. Is this somebody we should be getting exposure to? Yeah, I think McBride is somebody worth being in your player pool at low ownership. There's opportunity on the Knicks with a bunch of guys out. Can't confidently tell you that McBride is a priority, but he's somebody to get exposure to. Do you agree with that on McBride?
Yeah, definitely. If you're playing like 150, get exposure to him because all the Knicks bench guys, everyone on the Knicks gets a bump here. So having exposure to them makes sense. One lineup, he's not a guy I would look at.
Right, let's see what else we have coming in here. This next question is from Einsteinium. With all the value, who's our favorite spend up option to differentiate lineups? All right, so if we're looking to differentiate, this is quite a bit different than the idea of just top overall spend up options. Because on one hand, I mean, Luka to me is well under owned. Like, I'm double the field on Luka. I think that more of the field should be playing him. But if I sort by price point here, Jokic 12%, I'm overweight to him. I'm overweight to Jokic and Doncic tonight. And Jokic is lower on. So I'm going to say Jokic. How about yourself, Matt? If you're spending up to be contrarian.
If I'm spending up to be contrarian here, Sabonis. He's going to eat against this Memphis front court. It's just so hard to get to him.
Got a super chat here from Pierre. Pierre wants to know, Luka, Herter, and Aldama or Brunson, Cam, and Claxton? It's a FanDuel question. All right, so Doncic, Herter, and Aldama. I don't love Herter tonight. Brunson, Cam. I'm going to go with option 2 because I like all 3 of those guys. I don't think Herter is somebody you really need to be playing today. You've given us 6 options. I really like 5 of them. One of them not as much. So Brunson, Cam, and Claxton for me. And now we'll answer as many questions as we can quickly that just came in here in Discord. Nicola9292 wants to know, Achua or Roddy? I have more exposure to Roddy today. Roddy's a higher priority for me. Achua is a good option now that he's starting, but I prefer Roddy. JEW, last man in, Bridges or Triple J for single entry to get different? Bridges. If your goal is to get different, Bridges over Triple J. And I'm playing Bridges myself in single entry. Let me double check to make sure that I didn't screw up my CSV. But Bridges, yes, I do have Bridges in a single entry tonight. So Bridges, that is going to be my answer. And that also, nope, one question that came in here really quick. So I'll try to answer this. Gator Nation 850, small forward for FanDuel. He's got Derrick Jones in his GPP lineups. Is he playable? No, he was just ruled out. Don't play him. That was easy. That was a way easier question I thought it was going to be to finish out the show. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Rich and myself are going to be hanging out in Discord. Rich is going to have apparently 1 million projections to update tonight. So he's going to be doing that, and he'll be keeping everybody apprised of what happens there. So if you guys want access to all of the information, our projections, ownership projections, data, tools, as well as our Discord channel, where Rich and myself are going to be updating you guys throughout the night, sign up for a Stochastic membership using one of the links that we have below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out.